All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you hit the play button, which means you already know whatever the obstacle is, whatever the challenge is, whatever it is you may feel like is getting in the way of your success. We're here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Today, I have a Mr. Wade Lowe, who is, I mean, listen, we've had great entrepreneurs on this show. I mean, we've been going at this for now close to what, 5 years, going on 6 years of the
Mm.
Move Swiftly podcast. Has just been unbelievable entrepreneurs, and he's no different. I read through his backstory, and a lot of the things I can't wait to kind of pick his brain in terms of that on-demand automation, making life so much easier for business owners who really don't want to have to do all the tedious stuff that comes with being a business owner. They just want to focus on what they love and what they do. So, all that being said, Wade, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here. Appreciate it. Excited about the conversation.
Yeah, and one of the things actually that really intrigued me about your story is, let me tell you, I turned 36 this past January, and from I believe it was like 34 to 35, I did not have a sip of alcohol. Like I went
Mm.
completely dry, went completely sober. I did have maybe a beer here and there, and definitely nothing, any no hard liquor, but I actually had a couple beers for my birthday, and then after that, I said, you know what, I think I'm gonna try to just go sober. Period. Like not even touch alcohol anymore. And one of the things that actually really struck me about your sports story, especially seeing that you're located in Miami, was when I read, hey, man, you cut the drinking out. I believe it was like 28 years old or something like that. And then you
Yeah.
got really focused on your business and you were able to build something really special. So, kind of take us back there a little bit about your background. I know you have an entrepreneurial background, but take us back there to some of those dark years where you kind of had this insight, this revelation to say, all right, look, let's get this thing right, man. Let's remove the substances and let's do something productive.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of it was a revelation of like some awakening that I had, or that
Yeah,
life had just beat the ever living shit out of me. Hope
right.
I can cuss on the podcast.
Yeah, you can
Um,
press on him. But the thing is too, and I'm so glad you started there because you're right. That's what the alcohol does. It may feel great in the moment, but over time, it's like, look, if you got to decide whether you want to be productive or you want to just be some drunk out there doing apps, always making an excuse as to why things aren't getting done.
yeah, and part of it, and I got scared. Like, so alcohol was a big part of it. I could have kept drinking for another 20 years probably, but there was a lot of other outside substances that came with that lifestyle that I happened to be living. And I got really scared because I thought I was going to die soon. So
Well,
that, woke me up quite a bit.
mhm.
Um, and that all started like I was an athlete in college, played soccer in college.
What's
It was a big part of my life. And then I got out into the professional world and was doing well, but I was also 21 years old. I moved out to California. My company
mhm,
had actually moved me out there. Was having a pretty good run on from a career perspective,
mhm.
but I also got up every day and I was just like, man, I'm gonna have to do this until I'm 65 years old. Like, I don't want to do this till I'm 65 years old. So it was a way for me to have some type of an outlet or an escape,
Mhm.
because I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. It was a great company and I was doing well, but it just wasn't fulfilling
So,
at all.
and I hate to cut you off here, but
Yeah.
as a former college athlete, someone that really uses college athletics to teach business owners teamwork,
Hmm.
when you're talking about playing soccer in college and then trying to
Yep.
transition into the real world, or quote unquote the real world, what people call it, what were some of the things that were really just different, like challenging? Because again, I know it from a football perspective, but I definitely want to hear you kind of speak on some of those adjustments that a lot of college athletes, I mean, nowadays it's every single day. Look, the career is ending. You're kind of seeing the end. And
Yeah.
that part, you're right. It is incredibly scary to know you just to not know what you don't know because
Yeah.
it's scheduled
Well, I
everything.
think one was that to go from doing something that I thoroughly enjoyed and been doing my entire life, whether it was
Yeah.
soccer, whether it was other sports, I was just very athletic. So that was a
Mhm.
huge part of my identity.
Right.
And to have it just not there anymore, like you go from it being everything that you've wrapped your identity around to being now it's just non-existent, and you've
Hmm.
got to go find this other path. That was a shock to the system. Like
Okay.
I didn't have anything to fill that void, and professional um my professional career at the time was not fulfilling that was it wasn't filling that need or desire, that void to have something that I really cared about deeply and
Yeah.
doing something. So that was one component. The other was I started my career in outside sales, very different like today's SDRs where you're in a room with people. I guess it'd be similar to working remote. Like I've been working remote since I was 21
Mm-hmm.
and I was on a plane every week. And I was
Mm.
just by myself all the time. And when I was, as you know, you're playing a sport, you're around your
Yeah.
friends, you're around your teammates, you got the camaraderie, you're all working towards a common goal. You get to push each other. There's an excitement and there's this energy about that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any of that. And so all of that was kind of yanked out and look, in hindsight, I
Mm-hmm.
could have had a very different perspective of that because it was a very good company and a very good training ground, a very good career and all of that. But that's not how I saw it at the time.
Right.
At the time, I was like, wow, I've lost all of these things, and what I've gained is not something that I really appreciate at the time. And so
Exactly.
I ended up, finding that in other ways which were not healthy or productive.
Exactly. And then two, when you have the money, like you obviously at that age, you're making a decent living. If
Yep.
you're not mentally where you need to be, then you're right. The money just simply goes into substances that cope with what you're going through on the personal level, which is important for a lot of you business owners to hear as well. Because when you build these organizations, when you build these companies, you've got to think about the people that you have in there and what they're actually going
Mhm.
to be going through. So as you transition and you're going through this kind of this dark time,
Mhm.
when did you start to realize, I can really build something on my own? And what was the process like towards,
Yeah, it wasn't a while. So I got my entre. So I'm 48. So you look
come
good for
on,
30.
man, as
You
as a
look
young
good for
48,
37, by the way.
young 48.
So I got my entrepreneurial journey started late,
Uh-huh.
um, around like late 30s, really, kind of mid to late 30s. So
Right.
when I first when I first got sober and got back into a professional career, it was still working for other people. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until probably mid 30s I started to go, okay, like because originally it was just like I just want to get my life situated and get things back, right? So it was
Yeah.
all this like I just want to prove to myself and to others that I'm not an F up and that I can build my life and get it back, which I did.
Yes.
And then I was like, well, okay, but now I'm doing building for other people, which has been great. And I learned a lot. And I had some phenomenal mentors along the way and worked for some very good companies. So I could see how I think it was advantageous. So I got the opportunity to see how good companies operate.
Yeah.
So by the time I did start my own thing, I understood what good looked like.
Right.
So in some ways, I think I'm very fortunate that I started later than a lot of entrepreneurial entrepreneurs do because I had the experience of actually working inside of good companies to understand what good looked like.
Right.
So it was like mid 30s, so I started to realize I think I can do this as well for myself, if not better. And
Mhm.
then that gives me the opportunity to be able um, to drive more value for my own career if I'm making myself money versus making other people money.
Yes, and actually, it's interesting that you do mention that because often that gets confused as people think it's too late to start. A lot of
Yeah.
you guys listening to me right now say, "Look, I'm at a certain age. I'm just going to stick with my company. I don't want to ruffle any feathers." And too often do people consider, "Oh, late 30s, I'm starting too late." False. That is completely the wrong way to think.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the company that you have, it's called On Demand, correct?
Called co-founder on demand right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
on demand.
Yep.
So I'd love to give you the microphone to really walk us through this, and I want to like kind of frame it by telling you this story. There's a platform that I recently started using maybe 6 or 7 months ago now called Go High Level. And when
Mm.
you mention tech to me, listen, I'm intimidated. I don't want to do anything. I just want to pay someone to teach me how to do this. The step process. In fact, just yesterday I was trying to put out my first Google ad, and I'm like, you know what? Let me call somebody and do this because if I put my card in, and next thing you know, I'm going to get charged stuff because I don't know tech, right? So
Yeah.
the thing about Go High Level is they have somebody on demand. Like every time
Mm.
there was a question I had, I could just go on a Zoom link, spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then here's somebody that can answer the question. So with
Cool.
your services, I read, there's automation involved. There's things that, business owners like myself who are talented at the thing, but in terms of the other things surrounding it, they're going to need help with. So, I'll give you the platform to kind of speak on it a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a relatively new service slash
Mhm.
company. I'll give you the backstory
Yes.
because I sold an enterprise SaaS company
Mhm.
last year, in April of last year,
Okay.
and then took a bunch of time off.
Mhm.
Hung out with the kids, spent some time in the summer, didn't really work very hard. I've been either in like hyper growth, rapidly growing companies
Mhm.
or co-founding my own companies for the better part of like the last 13 years.
Right.
And I'm 48, so I was tired, right?
Yeah,
So I was
and that's a
tired. So
lot of
I,
work too. You're balancing a family as well.
yeah, and and so after I took the time off, I was like, okay, what do I? And I'm still going through that now. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Right, the
Yes.
exit I consider
And
it to
we
be a
never end
success.
that, man. We never have
Never
that
ends.
mentality, man.
Yeah. And I actually ask that question on interviews a lot when I'm interviewing people. Like,
Uh-huh.
don't take offense, but like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? It's very telling by the
It
answer that
is,
they
yeah.
give. But and so I'm still exploring what that looks like. And it was a successful exit. I had actually one before that too. So a couple successful exits, but not like FU money, right? But in a good position that I've got the luxury of some time and some space and to be able to think and try new things. But
Right.
one of the things that has come up a lot is I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and got a pretty good network of people that I've built over the last 25 years in a career.
Mhm.
And when I talk to a lot of founders, especially young founders, what I realized is that I actually had the benefit of having a very good co-founder.
Mhm.
And what I did, he didn't do, and what he did, I didn't do. And neither one of us wanted to step on each other. However, if it
Mhm.
was Friday night at 10 o'clock and there was something going on, you pick up the phone, you have a conversation. If it
Right.
was Sunday afternoon and we need to work through some things and you pick up the phone and you talk or you chat or you text or whatever, and it wasn't a thing. It's just like that's what you signed up for
Mhm.
as being a co-founder. Like that's the job.
Yeah.
It's not 9 to 5. You're not an employee. You got to do whatever you got to do to get the job done. And that means working late, having difficult conversations, working through problem situations off. It's just what you do.
Mhm.
Well, as I talk to more solo founders, especially younger ones, what I realize they don't have that, right? They don't necessarily know exactly. They have an idea, but they may not necessarily know how to execute on it. They may
Mhm.
be very bright, but they don't have necessarily a lot of operational experience on how do you run a company.
Mhm.
They also may not have a co-founder. You can't talk to your team about it if you have a team because you'll freak them out. You can't
Mhm.
really talk to your spouse or about it or your significant other about it because that's not really what they signed up for, and you freak them out. You
Right.
certainly can't talk to your kids about it. If you raise money, you can't talk to the VCs about it because if you talk to VCs about it, they could use it against you,
Mhm.
weaponize it, and end up firing you out of your own company later, which I've seen happen, by the way. And so you have to be kind of somewhat careful about what you share with them and don't share with them because their fiduciary responsibility is to their LPs. It's not to the business.
Yes.
Right. So
And
you end up in this
well, listen,
situation where they're just
it's a lonely job.
it's a
It's a
very
lonely
lonely
journey,
job,
entrepreneur,
right?
and any real entrepreneur will tell you it's a lonely
Yep.
ride, man. You better get ready to be lonely.
Yep. So that was the seed of the idea.
Hmm.
And because I was getting text messages from people on a Sunday with
Right.
a guy that I do some fractional work for, and I was happy to answer. He's like, dude, I'm so appreciative. I'm like, dude, if, first of all, I wasn't available, I wouldn't respond. But
Hmm.
secondarily, I know what it's like. Like I totally get where you're at. And it's
Hmm.
not a big deal. Happy to engage anytime. And that was what the that was kind of the precipice for the idea was there's a lot of founders out there that don't necessarily need a co-founder like in regards to equity, in regards to having somebody in the business all day every day, but
Gotcha.
they need that outlet to be
Mhm.
able to have conversations with people about what's happening, real conversations, unbiased, real
Yeah.
conversations where you can just authentically talk about what the hell is happening in your business,
Hmm.
what is happening in your life, how do I navigate through these things? Here's the situation. Look for some guidance probably because maybe you don't have a lot of deep operational expertise, and I actually know how to operate businesses, so I can provide some tactical input on how to improve situations.
Hmm.
And that's the precipice
Hmm.
of the idea and the concept, and it's going well. People seem to uh, get a lot of value out of what they're getting, and I enjoy doing it both from a personal and professional level. So that's where that
Yeah,
led
well,
me.
that's actually where I was going to ask you because nowadays everything's going virtual and everything, and it's probably again for you newer founders nowadays with social and the way the internet works, it's probably even more lonely because you really don't know who you can trust. You
Oh
have
yeah.
this passion, you have this brand, you have things you want to get out there, but without, like you said, without that one-on-one dialogue, without having a friend to shoot a text to or call, it becomes a very, very challenging space to be in. So how have you seen things evolve kind of as you've built everything you've done, as the communication is changing nowadays, how have you been able to adapt to what's going on in the world now?
So I hate Slack.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm on that actually. Yeah, I
I
am on that. Because well,
I hate it.
it's the same thing as like just a Google Doc, or it's
It's
just
just
the same.
it's a chat tool
Yeah,
internally that companies use, and it's really, I think, a giant distraction.
yeah, I've been
So
on that because I mean, there's people that I've groups I'm part of, and he said message me on Slack, and I just don't see the difference really. It's on the app's on my phone, but again, it's not nothing. It's just like just shoot a text.
it's internal. It's used as an internal tool for communication, which makes it's efficient and
Yeah,
for quick. But when people start to get into real business situations, and it's impossible to keep track of everything.
right.
And it's not like email where you can go back and search for things. So anyway, so I try to avoid that at all
Mhm.
costs if possible.
Right.
But typically it's texts, and for me, it's texts and phone calls.
Yes.
Video if needed. I mean, video is fine. I think in person is always more productive, but that's not always possible these days. I do think there is a shift back, or will continue to be a shift back into in-person. Companies are going to outperform virtual companies.
Right.
I just think they will. If you're already well established, maybe that's not the case. But if you're young and new and trying to get something off the ground, there is nothing better than having a room full of people all actively engaged in the process trying to push something forward. I think that I do think that's going to be a competitive, it's probably not, it's probably counterintuitive, like a lot of people want to hear, but I do think it's a competitive advantage now to be able to get a room of a group of very smart people together in person and work through real situations. Just the ability to be able to execute more quickly
Mhm.
is, I don't think it can really be disputed at the moment.
Right.
So that part I always try to engage in person as much as possible, but it's not always possible.
Right. And well, now moving forward, I just think it's going to be a mix of both technology and in person. But the in person, the people that are engaging you in person, they're going to be so much more valuable. The ones with those like really soft skills and they just have an ability
Yep.
to make a person feel welcome. You might actually be familiar with this restaurant because you're from Palm Beach. It's called Pete's Palace. It's right there on Jog Road, but they have, so I go there all the time. I love their omelets. I was there this past Sunday, or yeah, just yesterday. And I've asked the question, I'm like, are you guys ever going to go to an automated system with computers and all that? Because they still have literally waitresses, like elderly waitresses, writing down every order and giving it to people. And it was complete chaos at that time. And, a couple orders got messed up and all that. And I asked the question, you guys know that there's one of these where people can, put their stuff in, and they're like, it would be so expensive to do it. And
Mm.
as I thought about it, I'm like, you're right, but at the same time, you're able to streamline a process and keep the lady who was responsible for taking calls and then putting this order, she would be so less like overwhelmed because
Yep.
she'd be able to have the skills to be able to do certain things. So I bring that up because I want to give you the opportunity to speak to anybody that may be like your ideal client. Like if there's anyone listening now that you would prefer or that you would say, look, that's the ideal type of person that I want to work with to see if I can how should I spend my money? What should I transition? How would you describe that person?
Yeah. So there's solo founders are
Mhm.
always typically a good fit, but also then I do fractional work as part of that work. It's more hands-on, like I'm actually in a business,
Yeah.
and that's with companies that are typically between $5 and $50 million in revenue
Hmm.
and have plateaued and are looking to try to reignite their growth. And I've got a business partner named Radhika that I work with who comes in on the operations side,
Hmm.
and we'll typically come in and actually like get inside of it. But those are bigger companies, right? They actually have
Right.
they have teams built out, they have process built out, they have product market fit, they have revenue, they have customers, but they don't necessarily know how to go from where they are to that next level.
Got
So
it.
those are the two areas. And then there's also the solo founders where that's more of a an on-demand kind of approach. It's less involved in the actual business day to day.
Mhm.
It's more just working directly with the founder. To your point around making that change with the company you're talking about, one
Right.
of the things I'd say is there's the cost of the actual technology itself,
Right.
which may or may not be a lot. what the real cost that they don't want to incur is the actual implementation of getting everybody inside of that business to
Yeah,
change the way they do their work, especially if it's an older, um, kind of more mature employee base.
yeah,
That's a pretty heavy lift.
it is.
And that will cost them a tremendous amount of time and money, not necessarily cash, but brain damage to
Yeah,
try to get that rolled out, right? And that's where a lot of these legacy companies are running into. They know they need to be making changes.
right.
They understand that the way they do things today will not make them successful tomorrow, but the brain damage they have to incur to get from here to there to them is overwhelming, and they do nothing.
Yeah, and that is a great point that you're bringing up, especially for the business owners listening in. You have got to really stay on in tune. You can't get so confined with running your business that you're forgetting about what's going on in the outside world. Because
Yeah.
both of these locations, and I've said it on multiple occasions, as great as the food is, people may not come because of that one bad experience, and you write down the wrong thing, and then a person. But if you're so stuck in that way, I'm telling you it just won't take you into
Yeah.
2026 and 2020 and 2030 and beyond and all that stuff. So, all that being said, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just tell people about a little bit about what's next, what you see coming on the pipeline, and what's the future hold for Mr. Wade Lowe?
Yeah, thanks. So
You're the
that's
young Wade Lowe, young.
that's right. The young Wade Lowe. That's a great question. I'm exploring that. I obviously like being connected inside of businesses because I enjoy. But earlier in my career, like I was talking about, I was working for some good companies that I don't think I really realized like what a blessing that actually was.
Yeah, it
Didn't
is.
see
It is.
it that way, but
I'll probably keep you on for another hour talking about that because I've worked for some
Um,
really,
but
really.
I do thoroughly enjoy business. So staying plugged in with founders, with owners, with businesses. I like operating inside of businesses. So that's part of it.
Mhm.
Um, but I've also been, I gave a talk in my daughter's school last week because I asked some people to come in and talk about what's happening. And I think
Oh, nice.
there's some fundamental attributes that you have to be successful today. And
Hmm.
that is one, you have to be adaptable, you have to be able to persevere, and you have to be a doer. You have to do stuff. And that's
Right,
what I'm even working on that on my own. So I'm 48, right? And so there's certain things that I definitely don't know about. Like I'm not super well versed in AI. So
right.
I'm starting to play around with it and figure it out. Not because I want to be an expert, but I got to be minimally competent in that, right? I want to continue to evolve. I want to continue to adapt. I want to continue to get better and be valuable to people. And that's my focus right now is not necessarily the end destination because I don't know exactly where that is,
Hmm.
but it's how do I make myself more valuable so that whenever I show up to places, I'm actually able to help because
Hmm.
I've kept up with what's happening.
Exactly. Simply adaptability. And what is the best way that people can reach out to you? I think you already mentioned LinkedIn, but is there any?
Yeah, LinkedIn, and I've got a website called wadelowe.com.
Mhm.
You can find me there as well.
Cool. And I will include all of that in the show notes as well. You guys don't have to worry about typing it right now. You can just click the link in the show notes wherever you're listening to this from. And Wade, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You're back in your, I guess, freshman year in college, you're playing soccer, you're, not a care in the world, and you just don't know what the future is gonna hold. Pretend that that version of Wade is here in the Zoom room with us. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Uh, yeah, try to relax and enjoy
Mhm.
the journey a little bit more. I've always been fairly intense.
Right.
And you said like freshman year, not a care in the world in theory, but I always had a lot of care. I was always worrying about some shit,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So,
kind of the process of sports, man. I understand completely.
so I think part of it would just be, hey, we just relax and try to have a good time because it's all gonna work out.
Yeah, I would probably tell my former self something similar, man. Just I know it's an intense game, but just take it day by day and try to enjoy that particular day. Just enjoy that day because it moves faster than you think. So,
So
all
fast.
that
Yep.
being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.